Namaste and welcome to another episode of Tech Storytelling. And this tech story is for the business leaders and by the business leaders. And today I have an amazing guest, and he's Mr. Uh, Amahl William. Amahl William is the director of SYKES Digital Services. So, William, namaste and welcome to this tech story.
Namaste, Madan, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. So before we get started, just to give you a sense of who is Amahl William and what's your role with SYKES Digital Services, can you please let us know a little bit about your background and your role, what essentially you are doing?
Sure. So, now that I'm 42, I try to, focus on the last decade as opposed to, the totality of my career. So let's just do, last 4 or 5 years for sake of time. Prior to joining robotics, I had been in analyst work, bandwidth work, and reporting and analytics space. Financial management, governance, risk, and compliance, but also traditional warehousing and analytics firms. So we would take a look at the digital health of a business, and we would manage campaigns. We would manage customer databases, prospect or otherwise. And we would also do some targeting, reporting, and measurement of campaign success for Fortune 500s like Comcast. Let's see who else was in there, American Express. So a lot of folks who were focused on direct consumer marketing initiatives. That's where I was spending a lot of my time. So kind of cut my teeth in reporting and analytics there. Learned about the pain points of the quality of data, how hard it is to get information. But I also loved providing for customers, granular understanding of the health of their business, right? There's nothing better than when the CFO can go from what's going on to, I'd like to learn a little bit more about that specific data point that you have there. So old school way, people, data, long weekends, microbrews, steak. And I think kind of what the pivot for me, or the transition for me was, I don't know how this happened, but after I got married, I started looking at longevity, and I said, could I get a new job every 5 to 10 years? Of course. But
Yeah.
The first 10 years out of school, you're kind of like, let me just make sure that I can keep the job and afford myself. And then when you get into this stage of your career, you're like, how do I ensure that the next few decades are on my terms? So I saw a demo of a robot do in 30 minutes what it took about 5 analysts a week to do. And when I looked at the computing power and understood the accuracy, the lack of false strokes, direct integration with systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I said to myself, if I want to be competitively positioned going forward, I need to find a way to get myself closer to automation. So not the archaic version of automation where my employer Verizon built its own CRM. Not that. That was painful. That was exhausting. I'll tell you, it did help me understand the importance of best-in-class platforms versus homegrown platforms, and the nuance there. They're created for 2 different reasons, and they're leveraged for 2 different reasons. But when I saw that, I said, hey, Amahl, pay attention this time. You've already seen this part of the story. Let's make sure you're positioned for a future. So one of my articles was published in Forbes talking about the synergies between marketing, automation, and the future of work as it pertains to marketers in general.
Yeah, that is lovely. That is incredible.
Yeah. I'll share with you afterwards. Not my best piece, but it was me before I understood robotics. So what I said was, I see a tech stack, I see the capability shifting from human to digital, and I was saying that if a human gets, the things that fatigue a human are these things, right? Constantly updating PowerPoint, constantly finding additional analytics and derivatives from your initial data set. If we found a way to do that on an enterprise scale in a fraction of the time I had to evaluate if I was being serious about myself. So one of my articles, or maybe a handful of my articles, was shared with the CEO of a company called Wonderbots. His name was Steve Laval. His founding partner was Bhavyesh. And you're looking at the technical side of the brain, you're looking at the strategic side of the brain, but both are wonderfully talented entrepreneurs. They started businesses on their own. They stood up the US robotics practice at Ernst & Young. And I cut my teeth in, I think, what is a very intense but informative boot camp, right? So, I am eternally grateful to them for what they gave me as far as helping me get in here. But, once I got into robotics, I did the work. I helped take Wonderbots from, a partner to a partner of substance with Blue Prism. I grew my personal brand. I started to get noticed, and then SYKES recruited me second half of last year, and I've been in this role ever since.
Great. So since 2016, SYKES Innovation has produced more than 73 million customer interaction a year for your brand partners. This is amazing number. Would you like to tell us what is this SYKES innovation and what kind of transformation you are doing in this space?
Sure. So, I didn't have the foresight, right? So company stock is up. Maybe that was lucky. Yes. I don't know. But when I was looking at the use cases that I was evaluating prior to joining SYKES, I saw some holes in the core competencies of the organization. So we were able to do back office
Mhm,
transformation, but we were having a hard time becoming practitioners at front office, right? Customer
mhm,
facing applications,
mhm.
contact center, and what have you. And it's not really a thing you can fake, right? So I worked in telesales, my first job out of university, and I understand, I had to do 200 transactions daily, right?
Mhm.
And that's when you have phone, multiple systems, and you swivel your chair. So to me,
Yeah,
it's a very intimate understanding of what the quality of that conversation means to the next call, the
mhm.
customer that hung up, the customer that picks up. There's still people in that seat. And so what we're looking at is, value-based transformation is a part of the back office. You do need to have your back office in order. I think we all understand that that's no longer a debate. But when you're talking about monetizing the interactions between your customers and your organization, I believe it starts at the contact center, right? So some people will argue and say it starts with the website. I'm like, okay, that's fine, right? We want to divert some calls. We do want to use intelligent chatbots. I do want to give credit to one of our customers, Verizon, for doing an awesome job. AT&T as well. They are awesome at digital assistance
yeah,
in parts of the buyer's journey in the sales cycle. Now, will it get better over time? Absolutely. But if you compare them, industry leaders, to laggards, there's not a similar experience. And I
yeah,
won't call out the laggards because I don't want to demean the business. But the ones who are doing it, the ones who are courageous enough to learn how to fail in public, what they're doing is a percentage of their revenue is being automated across that channel. So I can purchase a phone, I can upgrade a phone, I can complain about the quality of a phone, I can swap in my old
yeah,
phone. And these are some things that we can learn from any business that has contact centers. So whether you are a legacy telecommunications company or you're Overstock who just outbid Amazon on a large government contract, if you have thousands of contact center employees, there is the ability to improve not only their quality of work experience, which improves the engagement on the phone, but also to enable your reps who are not necessarily your best reps to have quality interactions with your customers across channels.
yeah.
Sometimes the only human interaction they're going to have as your customer is the contact center. So it is a branding impression and we want
Oh
to
yeah,
perform. So when we look at that, there's kind of three ways to look at contact center.
yeah,
What's peak and what's off peak, right? Attended robots and unattended
yeah,
robots in that context, right? Of course. And then how do we leverage intelligent process automation, intelligent chatbots and cobots to improve the quality of the engagement? I mean,
yeah.
I love seeing NLP give me suggested criteria for what to say, right? I mean, I totally geek out when I see it because I'll have an entire conversation in predicative text and I hope that I don't get caught. So if you see me writing in sentences, I'm usually using predicative text. You see me using paragraph, I'm either using my voice or I'm
Oh
using my
yeah,
hand,
oh yeah.
right? So,
So in
so sorry.
similar
Go ahead.
context, yeah,
Go ahead.
in similar context, I mean, I saw your company, SYKES, is mostly focusing on self-service,
Mm-hmm.
insight analytics, and digital learning. And what I learned, using
Mm,
your platform, one of the major telecom had seen 20% reduction in support calls using
right,
self-service content. So would
right.
you like to tell us, I mean, the business use case and the
Sure.
drivers and how you have reduced it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sykes is an amalgam of strategic acquisitions. So when you talked about digital learning and when you talked about self-help, one of those acquisitions is Kelp. So the self-help business, I'm slowly becoming a fan of it now that I understand what it is. So basically what it is that the companies cannot keep track of their digital footprint around how to use a product. So how do I take a screenshot, right? I just got my new iPhone here, right? Screen shooting is different. I don't use my thumb, I use my face now. We'll deal
Yeah,
with that later. But as these handsets, as these use cases evolve, customers want to be able to easily find the information that they're looking for.
yeah,
Now, what brands don't have is the time, and sometimes they don't have the ability to create the content across their digital landscape to ensure that there's a frictionless and education for their customers over digital. So Kelp is wildly transformative for organizations because it looks at what your current footprint is for digital, where there are some holes in your learning gap, and then it creates content and a plan over time to close the gap, right? And so what happens is, one, by using Kelp, right? Um, Self-help, you're going to be now having your customers enabled to solve the problem for themselves
Yeah.
indirectly, right? Reducing the amount of time that they spend on the phone. Now, when we look at digital learning is not our direct consumer offering, it's our direct to business offering. It's actually my second favorite offering besides the business cycle that I work in, which is intelligent automation. I love it because I sat in enablement. I went through the process. I have tons of customers that have done enablement, and I saw what it was like for professionals to get frustrated. I see the friction of learning in public. I saw all of these things. And the main complaints were it takes a long time, it's not intuitive, I don't understand how it's applicable. And then all of a sudden, magically, yeah, this is my favorite part, and I won't call out brands here, but whenever RPA gets hard, people are,
Yeah.
wonderfully capable at finding something else to do with their time. So
Yeah.
our learning platform, what it does, I think it does three awesome things, and I'll talk about a little bit of its capabilities. So one, it
Oh, yeah.
reduces the total amount of time that you need to take to complete your course, right? We
Oh, yeah.
reduce that by about a third by keeping it relevant. So it's not just a voiceover on top of PowerPoint.
Okay. That
That's
is
not how it
great.
works, right?
Yeah.
We also reduce churn, which is huge. I've seen some COEs 90% churn in the learning experience. That's a staggering number.
Oh,
And imagine what impact that has on scale, right? Imagine if the only automations you can build are surface automations. What happens every time a system that you don't own gets updated or the application itself gets updated? That's a lot of expensive IT work. People don't get closer to the project. They want
oh,
to
yeah.
kind of get further away from it. But the last and most important piece is they create real world simulations based upon the automation techniques that you're going to use on a day-to-day basis. So we reduce the time to proficiency for the centers of excellence across. I won't even rattle them all off, but we have so many enterprise customers that are taking advantage of this. What you're going to start to see now is that enablement is something that customers look forward to as opposed to something they put on the back burner, right? They're going to prioritize it. And I published a piece that comes out at the end of this quarter in SYKES Quarterly talking about the importance of a commitment to digital enablement. And it is
Yeah.
comprised of tools plus training. And that tools part is the biggest part. You need to have the tools that give them hands-on experience so that when the student comes out of the exercises, they feel confident they're able to perform their job. So
Yeah.
Kelp, awesome for helping customers reduce the call time, reduce the calls in,
Oh,
help
yeah.
themselves, digital learning, improving business outcomes for enterprise class centers of excellence and other parts of business as well. Look at Bank of America. Anybody who uses the Bank of America CRM application, they're going through our training when they get onboarded as an employee.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is great. Incredible. I see you are a strong believer into customer experience, and I can see incredible work you are doing, helping the organization. I mean, become an experience-led organization. So would you like to talk about some of the work that you have done into improving or elevating the customer experience by using analytics and the intelligent automation?
Sure. So, the first thing, when you look at analytics, and then I'll get to CX, I mean, they're directly related. Is the offer relevant to me?
Oh, yeah.
Is the offer in the context of not only the action that I've taken in the past, but most likely the action that I will take? Excuse me. I always like to make fun of Home Depot, right? If I buy a door from Home Depot, they send me coupons for more doors, right? I know I have more than one door in my
Yeah.
house, but generally, you buy maybe one, two doors. You don't
Oh,
replace
yeah.
all six. So when you're looking at analytics in two ways, two kind of ways to think about it. Let's separate analytics from predictive analytics and modeling. So the first one, analytics, what does this information mean to me in the context of the health of my business in a specific geo, right? So this portion of my customer segment in the Northeast, how do they behave? How is their behavior changing in the context of COVID? And are we messaging in that context to improve campaign performance or campaign results? That's digital. On the phone, is there a unique experience that our customers in a certain area are going through, whether maybe it's COVID, maybe it's something else? Have I trained my folks on the phone to be empathetic,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Do I understand how to engage that customer based upon their sentiment when they get to me on the contact center? Are my systems integrated so that I understand the customer's history across the entire footprint of the organization that is customer facing? So when we look at that, we do want to understand, who's on the phone, who's buying, which offers are being received well, right? What are some points of friction for our customers, and how can we enable our services folks to better resolve those issues? Because it's not just about the wait time, right? It's
Yeah.
the call handle time. How long did we have to stay on the
Yeah.
phone to resolve this issue? So ideally, sales calls, yes, let's talk a little bit longer, right? Because I want to upsell and I want to cross sell. But services calls to me should be exceptionally pragmatic. Yes, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, you're not the only person who's experienced this pain point in the past. just so you know, there are some self-help mechanisms to solve for this in the future, but here is the specific
yeah,
remedy, and here's how I'm going to follow up with you, and I'd also like to resolve it, right? So it's not customer success until not only does the customer hang up, but that they've resolved their issue and they're, talking
yeah,
about the brand experience in a positive way. Now, other analytics, predictive analytics, ad hoc analytics, predictive, um, who are going to be my best customers, and how do I prevent churn within the organization, right? Am I servicing them? Are they not interacting with the platform? Are they not responsive to my
yeah,
messaging? Is this their favorite channel to engage with us on, right? It's easy to be prescriptive if you don't understand which questions to ask, right? So number one, let's not have more calls than we need to have, but also let the customer have pleasant experience. Two, let's make sure that the people that we are driving to the contact center are actually qualified, right? When I was out of college and I had to take my 200 plus calls a day to hit my targets, a lot of those calls were services, exchange returns, customer support, right? Those were not sales calls, but Verizon, for whatever reason, chose to push it through sales. So I handled more calls than sales calls, but I still got to my sales target. So what happens, right? When I had a non-sales call, how long was my call? Wasn't this long, right? Try to keep it that long. That's a customer touch point. And if we did some intelligent automation there, or we did some intelligent chatbots, that person wouldn't be routed through a salesperson trying to get to quota, right? They
yeah,
would do what Verizon is doing, which I think is amazing, which is, would you like to schedule an appointment so that somebody from our organization will reach out to you at your convenience? That is a better customer experience, period. So I think that that part is important from a CX standpoint, but from an analytics throughout the rest of the business, we joked about this earlier, Madan. If companies were doing it, they would talk about it more. And it's not just about connecting the robot to the application, right? You
yeah,
have Tableau, right? You have Alteryx, you have business objects. Sometimes some people still have Domo, right? And then old school Excel. You have a bunch of ways to connect and have the robots interact with analytics platforms, but what you're trying to inform them is which analytics are the most effective,
oh
right?
yeah,
So when we looked at, there's a great creation, Wonderbots has it, it's called Report Bots. Report Bots takes data from information that you, systems that you may or may not know. It extracts and externalizes that data, it transforms it, and it presents it in the format that is most suitable for the user. So PowerPoint, Word, Excel, what have you, across all applications that the company owns. So if
oh
the
yeah,
bot can connect to it, we can externalize it, we can apply business rules and logic to it, and we can deliver that reporting information at a standard cadence, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it may be. That's step one. So as soon as you would sell it, Madan, the next question they would ask, CFO controller level, they would say, should we do an audit and inventory of all of our reports? And the guy who created it says, actually, that's what this does. So what's going to happen is during your first couple of runs, people aren't necessarily going to say, I want more runs. They're going to say, oh, wait, these are the runs that I need. And as people start to interact with information that is meaningful, right, they
yeah,
start to kind of trim the fat around the data sets that they didn't need,
oh
right?
yeah,
So, like, do I need to see all viewers to my website, or do I just need to see the viewers on the pages that have converted, right? When I was a marketer leading marketing practice, conversions, I care about that. Buyer's journey,
oh
I
yeah,
care about that. So, when we look at it, I think what I'd like to see is democratization is not just about the democratization of ideation. Democratization of data is what automation or intelligent process automation is going to create. So we have our hands on keyboard, right? We have our eyeballs, the cognitive
oh
stuff,
yeah,
right? And then we have, I actually know this is funny. All right, I'm going to borrow people's words and I'm going to change it to mean what I want it to mean. Citizen developer is not necessarily hands on
oh yeah,
keyboard. Citizen developer is a solution designer that cannot code but understands the capabilities of the bots and the outputs that they can create. So if I solution for an analytics offering at a business, I don't necessarily anymore have to be the person who understands how to build it. I just need to be the person who understands what its capabilities are and what I can ask of it. And then I take that information and I use that to improve
oh yeah,
performance in a part of my business. That's what I believe it's going to be. When we look at our core customers in that use case, it was, do you have 4,000 hotels, 4,000 stores? And did you just want to get revenue results across all of those locations, even when somebody was sick? Or even when your head of analytics was going to retire. And
yeah,
so if we take it from there, if I can figure out what the revenue is, what else can I grab from the organization? What else can I predict? What else can I leverage additional data sets and additional partnerships like Data Robot to enrich the way that I think about asking meaningful questions
yeah,
about the health of my business? So I think it's all of those things if we look at it candidly. But the first thing you have to realize is that transition is buying a new analytics platform. Transition is agreeing to a different reporting cadence. Transformation is changing not only who does the work, but how the work is delivered, and then how the information is used to inform the
Yeah.
overall health and proficiency of the business. And
Yeah.
that's really exciting because
Yeah.
prior we did not have those capabilities.
So this is incredible. You talked about the question, asking the right question from the business users. And one of your posts I'm referring, your transformation journey at Nokia that
Mm,
began with a question: to what degree are you supply chain processes automated? And from
right.
the day one, Nokia was targeted, committed themselves early to build an infrastructure that was scalable, virtualized, and they were bringing all the pieces together. So would you
Mhm.
like to tell us the story? I mean, how your transformation journey happened at the Nokia?
Sure, sure. So, I've successfully completed training when I could tell the story and pass the quiz. So that one predates me, but it's still an awesome story about transformation
Yeah.
across multiple lines of business. So, let me do a little bit of scary stuff first, Madan. Here's what happens when you don't do it correctly.
Oh, yeah.
So when you don't set up your environment for success, you're refreshing servers on
Yeah.
a daily basis. If your infrastructure isn't set up for
Yeah.
long-term scale and it's residing on a few laptops, you know what happens. Laptop drops, it gets too cold, something happens, right? Somebody's working on the application while the robot's trying to work as well, and the human experience is fractured and terrible. But when we look at it, we have an offering called the Future of Work Accelerator here at SYKES Digital Services. And I mean, it's been a part of the value proposition of the organization, before I was here. I was working in another field. And what it does is it takes a look at across multiple lines of business, not only who are the key stakeholders where transformation should take place. We take a look at 200 use cases across the
Oh, yeah.
organization, right? And then we stack rank them based on value. So not ROI, meaning how many hours given back to the business.
Oh, yeah.
Some
That's
people
great.
right? Some people argue that that's a maturity indices, right? So like proof of concept pilots, FTE is for that. For us, we want to say with minimal investment, $1 to maybe $5 million, can you save $7 to $50 million? And how do we
Oh,
find that? So the first is, digitization, right? Do we have everything in hard copy or soft copy, right?
mhm.
What amount of data are we going to be looking at? But once we have access to it, how are we going to not slightly change, but transform the way that we're currently
Oh,
doing
yeah.
things today? So the result of the Future of Work Accelerator is 3 weeks up and 3 weeks down across each one of the COEs that was stood up. So I think
Mhm.
it was either 6 or 7 COEs at start across the globe. This is what I think makes it special. This is
Oh,
why I
yeah.
came. I can stand up enterprise scale transformation across 10 locations for a company, and I can still do my regular job and serve my existing customers without
Oh,
putting
yeah.
too much resource strain on them. So when you look at it, let me give you a second example of how it fails. We're only in finance. We're not above the director level. The VP is not actively involved, and
Mhm.
the head of finance is not even remotely aware. They may sign off on it while they're looking at their spreadsheet saying, why do all these SaaS applications cost so much? Like, why are my, your most expensive line item is usually your CRM, right? Or your
Oh, yeah.
ERP. And then whatever the key application is for your most expensive employees. So one huge line item might have been Blackline or Trintech, account closing software.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so one of the reasons why there is a little bit of friction at the application level, Epic is very specific about this, is that we understand that when you connect robots to these applications at the API level, two things are true. One, the bot is a super user, right? Because it is fluent in the application. Doesn't really need training, just needs context, which is different.
Mhm.
Training is, how do I use this? Context is, how should it be used, right, to meet the business goal? A little bit different. So once we get access to that, what happens is historically, the customer needs less licenses to get the work done. So I don't need 1,200 CRM licenses anymore. I don't need 700 accounting licenses anymore. I need fewer licenses
Oh, yeah.
that are upgraded with super users. I externalize the data set and I allow for the robots to transform it before it's being presented or loaded back into the system to complete the process. So out of the box, SAP, Blackline, insert other applications as well, you're going to get about 25 to 30% automation. That is an improvement. I think that is transition.
Oh, yeah.
I do not think that is transformation. Transformation is, how do I close the gap from 25 to 80, right? Because 100 doesn't necessarily exist. There is still place for human in the loop and human logic. We all understand this. But how do I go from 25 to 80, right? And the answer there is automation, right? And if there's going to be I mean, you know this, you know the industry by now, so I don't want to be pretentious when I deliver it, but you can do more And when you do more, it costs your company less to perform business year over year. So when my new argument that I like to pick on LinkedIn is the cost of business doesn't have to go up year over year. And the only reason why it isn't going up year over year is because some brands are choosing transformation over transition, right? They're not just replacing CRM, rip it out, start a new one. That doesn't make the sales rep load more information into the system. That doesn't make rep in Utah hit their targets, right? What makes the person get closer to it is that when I'm on the phone and I'm doing my swivel chair stuff, when the call ends, if the application is being updated while I'm speaking, if I'm the trainer in the contact center, if I have telemetry level data and I understand that based upon the sentiment, the rep is using suggested criteria to improve and inform the conversation, I know that that's actually a win. So let me get back to the Nokia story specifically. They went through I think it's due diligence. So due diligence is not, don't do a bake off between AA, UiPath, and Blue Prism. They've already spent $100 million a piece on marketing to prove that they are unique, right? So when you do POC, you do pilot, you're not actually uncovering or discovering. For example, think about it this way, Madan. Imagine requesting budget to do a proof of concept in SAP at this point. Stop it. Please behave yourself, right? Focus on migrating to S4 and then automate around the migration because you only have 4 years left, right? So what we want to do is we want to get away from tactical automation proof points that companies are already marketing about is true. If you have Salesforce, you're fine. If you have Oracle, you're fine. If you have SAP, you're fine. A Lucian banner in education, you're fine. And I can keep going. There's 8,000 systems. I'm not going to rattle them all off. But if we can connect to it, right, and we have a solution designer that understands what they're doing in the context of your vertical, we can teach the robots the business rules that you need to achieve the business goals, as long as you're not slavish to the desktop or the keystroke, which was your past, right? How are we going to do it going further? So first thing is, whatever the role is, accounting, finance, HR, you just have to prove to the humans that the robots can do it. And once you do that, right, you have a wider freeway. The highway opens up, right? There's no more congestion, right? But the Nokia transformation is awesome because it speaks to our brand value of not only the number of robots at scale, so archaic traditional RPA sales. Here's a pack of 5 bots, here's a pack of 10 bots. Let's find some use cases. Let's get 19 to 20 processes automated within the first year. The partner does most of the work. The customer reluctantly does some of the low complexity automations. That's not how this happens. When you look at these 7 to 8 centers of excellence across different lines of business, what we said is, how much money would you like to save in the first year? Right? And they would say, well, minimally, if I get 160% return on investment, then we have a win, right? But what we're seeing now, Madan, is we're getting better at this, and the companies are more automated. So like when I go into the Midwest, I go into Ohio, and I hear that there's large Fortune 5s that are almost 100% digital. If you are 100% digital, what I can do with you from a transformation standpoint is much greater than if you still have to scan things, but again, both companies exist. So the value to me is, here's why the SaaS reps that are my partners, they care. Our average software sales size is 8x the industry average. So my SaaS partners, when you work with us, you won't sell 5 robots, you'll sell 40. It's just how it is. Because we understand not only how to identify and scan for the automation candidates, we stack rank them based upon value back to the business. And that is not subjective, that is objective. If you want to save $7 million, migrate this instance to the cloud. If you want to save $50 million, let's do it across 8 lines of business, right? Let's look at, here's my favorite customer, Capita, right? Capita had a $1 million investment in automation services that saved them $17.5 million in peak time.
That's great, amazing.
That's a massive ROI. So when you're looking at, if your peak days are 30,000 applications to be processed in commercial loans, right?
So I'm cutting you down. We have another 3-4 minutes, and then we need to quickly wrap it up.
Sorry, Madan. Just quickly, it's just the value proposition is, when you understand value-driven transformation, you start with ROI and not with an individual use case.
That's great. So in the conscious of time, this is what audiences will discuss. We were talking with Amahl Williams. He's the director at SYKES Digital Services. You can follow him on LinkedIn. You can exchange the thought process. This is interesting and really exciting business use case, what he talked about from Capita and Nokia. And thanks a lot for your time today, for spending time with our audiences, with me, Alha, and wish you all the best.
Thanks, Madan.